Long-time lurker, first-time posting. I am coming to you, the brains of Reddit that always finds some angle I never considered, because my dad did something so wild yesterday, and I am spinning myself in circles about it. I'm trying to settle on an answer, but nothing really adds up. I will break it down as thoroughly as I can, but my family has enough drama that it could fill 10 novels, so I'll be very to the point about it. So I will reiterate, again, that I do not have any kids and am not married. I have never been married, never even moved in with a man. Here are the people I can think of that might be involved in this somehow. I have one brother, 27 years old, and one sister, 22 years old. Brother is in a long-term relationship with a nice woman, but they're both not interested in kids right now. Sister still lives at our mom's house. No kids, no long-term partner. My parents are divorced and my mom remarried. Dad stayed single. He lives with my uncle in his 40s and uncle's wife in her 40s. Stepdad is fine. They got married after I was out of the house. Sister reports that they're normal and beige together. He has no kids and has never met my dad anyways, so his family can be removed from the equation. Here's what happened. I have a shitty, low-rent apartment, about 45 minutes away from my dad's house. It's on the 3rd floor, and you have to walk into the apartment building and up flights of stairs to reach my door. Yesterday around 6 p.m., my dad knocks on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting him, so when I answered, I was confused, but pleasantly surprised. I greeted him normally, and he gave me a side hug because he had a few toy boxes in his hands. Like Fisher-Price toys for really young kids, even babies. I didn't say anything about them because I had no reason to assume they were for me. Like I just didn't even register them in my brain. He looked totally normal. He wasn't breathing weird, wasn't sweaty. His pupils weren't huge. Nothing was off with him visually. When we hugged, I didn't smell anything weird, no alcohol or smoke or anything. But my face wasn't too close to him. I said I was happy he dropped by, but why is he here? He said he was in the area shopping when saw these toys, which he then held up for me proudly, and wanted to give them to the girls. I said, who? And he gave me 2 names I didn't recognize. I remember my brain sorting through the Rolodex of everyone I've ever met in our family Terminator style, and nobody matched. As I'm standing there trying to match the names to any kids I knew of, he peeks over my shoulder into the apartment and asks if the kids are here or if they're with Mike. Again, who is that? Apparently it's my husband. I must have been radiating confusion since now my dad is looking just as confused as I am, but still keeping up a good mood kind of vibe. I tell him I am not married and have no kids. At first he insisted I did, and when I reiterated that, he just kind of shook his head. At this point, I'm getting really concerned. Is my dad lost, confused? Is he having some kind of breakdown? I ask my dad if he knows where he is. He starts to get frustrated really quickly and confirms that yes, he knows where he is and who I am. I start to ask him questions that I've seen in movies like, do you know what time it is, or the year? And he just gets more and more angry. He starts shouting at me right in my face, yelling, "You think this is funny? And are you trying to make me look stupid?" There's bubbles of spit in the corners of his mouth. He went from serious hundreds so fast, it genuinely kind of scared me, and I just retreated a bit into my apartment. When I backed away, he took it as a personal offense and started screaming, "Oh, now you're scared. You're scared of me. Guess I'll just frick off then." He storms off, literally stomping his feet like a child down the hallway. I thought about chasing him, but he was so irate that I didn't think it was a smart move. The whole interaction was less than 5 minutes. I closed and locked my door and immediately start making phone calls. I called my mom, uncle, and siblings. Nobody has any idea what just happened. I did ask my mom and sister if I was the crazy one, and did have children I just forgot about. They confirmed I certainly didn't. Uncle says that Dad left the house around 4 p.m. to run errands in my area, so that part was true. I told him what happened, and he said he'd try to figure out what's going on and would call with updates. It's tomorrow morning, and I haven't heard anything back. I spent all night trying to figure this out. Here are my theories. He has another kid somewhere that none of us know about, and that kid is married with 2 kids. But if that's true, why my apartment? Did he confuse me with his other hidden kid? He confirmed he knew where he was, so I'm not sure. Did he drive here on autopilot? He'd have to get out of his car and walk all the way up here, though, which should have been enough time to snap out of it. The anger might have come from him realizing what he'd done and panicking, but it would have been so easy to make up a lie about what happened. He had some kind of mental breakdown. This was my first thought, but he looked and acted so normal. He drove out here and went to a store and purchased items without issue. So he must have been in decently sound mind to do that. Maybe he was somewhere else in his mind. I considered the idea that he was maybe in the past and thought I was someone else. But again, he confirmed where he was and who I was. And I didn't recognize any of the names as anyone in our family. He did this on purpose for some reason. I have no idea why he would do this. Drama? Our whole family loves to stir the pot, but this is extreme and makes him look bad, which is out of character. If he were to manufacture drama, he'd want to make himself look good. So this would be a drastic switch in his dramatics. Maybe sympathy? Maybe he's going to play this up as some kind of stress breakdown. As far as I know, his job doesn't squeeze him too much. He's had the same position for years and was pretty happy with it. The most he complained about was having to work overtime every once in a while. He's developing dementia. I know early onset dementia could be the cause, but he's just barely 50. Yeah, he's getting older, but not that old. And he's never shown any signs of cognitive failure up until this exact point. This is a huge escalation from nothing. If anyone else has any idea what is happening here, please share. Uncle has yet to call me back, and my siblings can't get through to my dad's phone. I think it's dead. I left a voicemail and texts on my uncle's line, but who knows if he's seen them. I don't have any authority in his life. The only one that does is my brother, and he lives in another state, so it's not like he can help much. What the frick happened to my dad? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. My dad had brain tumors late in his life. Yep, before anyone caught what was going on, there were changes that seemed to not make much sense. He got them removed and was around a few more years, but could have ended the life of him years earlier. He needs medical help and fast, as someone said, or you may not have a dad much longer. Brain tumors are only one of many things that could be going on. Comment 2. Your dad needs to be seen by a healthcare professional immediately. There are multiple possible causes of this beyond dementia, which you personally cannot rule out. Things like schizophrenia, drug reactions causing hallucinations, even things like brain tumors can cause seemingly otherwise normal people to do things we might see as crazy. Get him to a doctor ASAP. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments on my last post. They really got me thinking. So, here's what went down after that bizarre encounter with my dad. The next day, I was still reeling from the confusion when my phone buzzed. It was my uncle, finally calling back with some news. He sounded worried, which immediately set off alarm bells in my head. He told me that after my dad stormed out of my apartment, he didn't come home. Instead, he drove to his old neighborhood where he and my mom first started out as a young couple. My uncle found him there, sitting on a park bench, staring at the playground with a distant look in his eyes. My uncle coaxed him back home, but Dad was quiet the whole ride, a far cry from the angry man at my doorstep. Once home, he locked himself in his room, refusing to talk to anyone. My uncle was at a loss, and so was I. We decided to keep a close eye on him, fearing the worst. The following day, my sister called me in a panic. She had gone over to check on Dad and found him packing a suitcase. He was mumbling about needing to set things right and fix the past. My heart sank. This wasn't just some random outburst. Something was seriously wrong. My sister tried to reason with him, but he brushed her off and left the house before she could stop him. I felt helpless, stuck in my apartment, miles away. I called my brother and we agreed that we needed to intervene before Dad did something he might regret. My brother booked the next flight out, but that still left us with hours before he could get there. I decided I couldn't just sit around and wait. I took a deep breath and made my way to Dad's house. When I got there, the place was eerily quiet. My uncle and his wife were in the living room, looking like they hadn't slept a wink. They told me Dad had taken off in his car and hadn't been back since. We were all worried sick. imagining every possible scenario. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered it anyway. It was a local hospital. My dad had been admitted after a minor car accident. He wasn't hurt, but they were concerned about his mental state. He kept asking for Mike and his granddaughters, none of which made any sense to the hospital staff. We rushed to the hospital, and after a long wait, a doctor finally came to talk to us. He explained that Dad had experienced a transient global amnesia episode, a sudden, temporary episode of memory loss that can be triggered by stress or other factors. It was a relief to know there was a name for what happened, but it was still scary. The doctor said Dad would recover, but it might take some time for his memory to fully return. Over the next few days, we stayed by Dad's side as he slowly started to come back to us. He was embarrassed and confused about what had happened, but we assured him that it was okay, that we were just glad he was safe. And then, on the third day, something amazing happened. Dad woke up with a clear head. He remembered everything, including the bizarre incident at my apartment. He apologized profusely, explaining that he had been under a lot of stress at work and had been having trouble sleeping. It seemed like all of that had culminated in his strange behavior and memory loss. We all breathed a sigh of relief. It was like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders. Dad was going to be okay, and we were going to make sure he got the rest and support he needed. Looking back, it was pretty hard on us of emotions, but we came out of it stronger as a family. We learned that even when things seem to be falling apart, we can pull together and get through it. And I learned that no matter how confusing life gets, there's always a way to make sense of it in the end. Thanks for sticking with me through this chaotic ride. My husband wants an open relationship with his coworker. While I'm pregnant, so I expose their affair and watch him lose everything. Throwaway because my husband knows my Reddit handle. I've also changed names just to diminish the chances of him finding me. He's not hurtful, but I have no intentions of letting him find out what I intend to do before I do it. I guess I'm just looking for advice on what to do. Victor and I met 5 years ago, and we've been married for almost 3. When we were dating, I told him that under no circumstances would I condone cheating. If he cheated and I found out about it, that's it. I'd cut off all contact and he'd never see or hear from me again. If we were married and/or have kids, we'd only go through our lawyers. He told me he was glad I had standards, and the past 5 years were great, not perfect. But I believed we were happy. We decided to try for a baby last year. My due date is in 16 weeks. I was over the moon happy, and I believed he was too. He told me when we were dating that he didn't care if we had only boys, but he always wanted to have at least one little girl for him to pamper and spoil. When we learned the baby was a girl, he cried and told me I was the best wife in the world. That was until last weekend. Victor went out to get groceries, but left his phone in our room by accident. I decided to take it down to the kitchen so he wouldn't be scrambling looking for it when he got home. As I was walking to the kitchen, a text message popped up. It was from his work wife, Alicia, 31 years old female. It said, "So the plan's on?" I don't know why, but something about this made me suspicious. Victor is the type of man who uses the same passcode for everything, so I was able to access his phone. Well, I checked his messages, and I learned that he intended to ask me to open the relationship so he and Alicia can start going out. I've never met an open relationship that's ever worked out, and a number of people I've talked to have told me that an open relationship is usually because someone is already cheating and wants to continue guilt-free, or has someone in the wings. And it's clear that if he and Alicia aren't sleeping together, they certainly intend to. I was able to get screenshots of the text messages going back as far as I could and sent them to myself. I've also packed a bag and headed to my older brother's Oliver, 32 years old male, house. He opened his doors to me when I told him what happened. As I didn't want Victor to know that I know, I just left a note saying that Oliver had an unexpected emergency, and I headed over to help him. Victor just asked me to stay in contact, and he loved me. I have an appointment with a lawyer in a few days. Honestly, I feel disgusted. This man knew the whole time that I'm not going to play these kind of games, and he went ahead and decided to mess around and find out. But I don't want to play my hand just yet. Maybe I'm being petty, but I want to catch him as off guard as he caught me off guard. I don't want my baby to be around a man who believes it's okay to make a promise to be loyal and faithful, but decide to break it to chase some tail. What kind of message does that send to a child, especially a girl? I don't care if he wins Father of the Year. He still thinks it's okay to treat the woman he vowed to love, cherish, and honor for the rest of his life like a side piece. Victor has been trying to call and text me, asking if I'm okay. Oliver has been texting him back as me because I don't think I can talk to Victor without blowing my top. What do I do now? How do I tell him that not only did he choose Alicia over me, but I don't want my baby to grow up believing this kind of thing is okay? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I don't want my baby to be around a man who believes it's okay to make a promise to be loyal and faithful, but decides to break it to pursue other romantic interests. This is not within your control. The father will be given access to his daughter, unless something truly horrendous happens. In most states, the father would be given some form of joint custody. Comment 2. Keep in mind your soon-to-be ex, STBX, might actually be planning to cheat on you without discussing the idea of an open marriage with you directly. He's probably just told his work wife about the open marriage plan so she feels more comfortable with the situation. Just a relatively minor technicality, it doesn't change the fact that this relationship is not for you. Stay strong. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. It's been a pretty up and down month. After I found out about Victor's plan to ask for an open relationship, I thought I had seen the worst of it. But life has a way of surprising you. My brother Oliver has been my rock, but even he couldn't have predicted what happened next. A few days after I left Victor, he showed up at Oliver's place, unannounced and desperate to talk. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that the texts were just a joke. I almost believed him. Almost. But then, as he was pleading, his phone buzzed with a new message from Alicia. Miss you. Can't wait for our weekend getaway. My heart sank. I knew then that his words were as empty as the promises he made on our wedding day. I confronted him right there, with Oliver by my side. Victor's face went white, and he started stammering, trying to explain it away. But I had enough. I told him I knew everything and that I was done. He left, and I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Victor started a campaign to win me back. Flowers, letters, voicemails. He even donated to my favorite charity in a bid to show his remorse. It was relentless. And for a moment, I wavered. The thought of our family being torn apart was too much. I thought maybe, for our daughter's sake, I should give him a chance to explain himself. That was my mistake. I agreed to meet him in a public place, to hear him out. He spun a tale of stress at work, of feeling trapped by impending fatherhood, and how Alicia was just an escape. He begged for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. And I, caught up in the moment, agreed to think about it. I left that meeting confused and vulnerable, and that's when I made the call that I now regret. I called Alicia. I wanted to hear her side, to understand why she would do this. She was cold, almost mocking. She said Victor had told her our marriage was a sham, that we were already separated. She claimed she was just having fun, and that I should lighten up. That conversation was a slap in the face. It was clear that Victor and Alicia were made for each other. Both liars, both cheaters. I felt like a fool for even considering his pleas. I went back to Oliver's, my decision made. I would go through with the divorce. But as I was gathering my thoughts, another news dropped. Oliver confessed that he had known about Victor's infidelity for weeks. He had seen them together, laughing and cozy, but didn't know how to tell me. He was ashamed and begged for my forgiveness. I was floored, betrayed by my husband, and now, in a way, by my brother. It was too much. I felt like I was drowning in deceit. The aftermath was messy. I moved out of Oliver's place, needing space from everyone. I found a small apartment and focused on my pregnancy, my upcoming divorce, and rebuilding my life. Victor's attempts to contact me became more frantic, but I ignored them all. I was done. Then, just when I thought I could breathe again, the final blow came. Victor had been fired from his job, Apparently, his affair with Alicia wasn't as secret as they thought, and it violated company policy. He called me, panicked, worried about child support and alimony. He was spiraling. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was a deep sadness. Our lives, once so intertwined, were now a mess of anger and regret. I realized that my choice to contact Alicia, to seek out more pain, was the wrong one. It changed nothing and only added to the hurt. Now I'm just trying to move forward, for my daughter's sake. I've learned that some choices once made can't be undone, and some wounds take a long time to heal. Thanks for sticking with me through this. My daughter's secret meetings with a stranger break our trust. So I confront him and ensure he'll never come near her again. I, 33-year-old male, have a daughter, 15-year-old female. Let's call her Jenny. Yes, I became a father when I was 18. When my baby was 1-year-old, her mother confessed that she had recently cheated on me with someone I was not familiar with. So we broke up. As I was a student back then, as well as my ex-girlfriend, my mother, Jenny's grandma, decided to step in and take care of our daughter. So Jenny moved to my mother's house, as I couldn't afford my own house or an apartment, and had to continue studying at a university in another city. Jenny's mother didn't mind that. Fast forward 3 years, my ex dies in an accident. After 5 more years, I got married. My wife and I rented a house and decided that it was time for us to reunite with my daughter. This is when I received a phone call from a guy who was familiar with Jenny's mother. He claimed that he was a close friend of my ex, and that he was also familiar with my daughter. He asked for my permission to see my daughter from time to time, buy her presents for her birthdays, etc. Because she reminds him of his friend that passed away. This actually looked kind of weird to me. A stranger wished to spend time with my child. So I just refused without even diving into any investigation. He never called again, and I just forgot about this incident for good. So now my daughter is 15, and a year ago, my wife spotted a man chatting with Jenny on the street. When she came closer, the man rapidly walked away. My wife asked Jenny about the man, and Jenny told her that he was just a friend who visited her sometimes when she lived with her grandma. When I confronted my mother, she admitted that there was some guy coming to her house with the parents of my ex when they came to visit the grave of Jenny's mother once or twice a year. He was introduced as a family friend, so she didn't even consider it necessary to tell me, yeah, that's my mom. Here I should mention that our relationship with Jenny was really nice. I'm not an ideal parent, but I did my best to make her feel loved and cared for, as she is an essential part of the family. They really get along with my wife. Sometimes Jenny calls her mom, and sometimes not, but anyway, the atmosphere inside my family is really warm. Jenny loves to hug both of us. We play board games, everything is pretty fine. We had a talk together, and I told Jenny that she should not continue that communication, as this man is not related to our family, and we don't know his true intentions. She seemed to agree, and promised not to talk to that man again. We changed her mobile phone number so he couldn't reach her anymore. 2 months later, I asked Jenny if he had tried to contact her again, and she said he hadn't. Half a year after that, I spotted a strange message that popped up on her phone, which said something like, "Are we meeting today? Don't let Helen know about it. Helen is my wife." I insisted on inspecting Jenny's phone, and voila! Tons of messages and even photos with that guy. He calls her my sweet and honey. He also confesses that he was a lover of her mom and has feelings, damn, what feelings exactly, towards my daughter. But beside that, there's no evidence that there was something between him and Jenny other than casual chatting and occasional brief encounters. But who knows? He even somehow managed to have secret meetings with Jenny when she lived with my mother, as well as meeting Jenny secretly when she moved to our house. I discovered that my daughter used any opportunity to meet him, and did this so many times and hid it so skillfully that both my wife and I have never suspected anything. I don't remember Jenny lying to me before, and I had no reason not to trust my child when she asked for my permission to go to the trade center with her friends, to the school club, etc. I filed a police report, but I don't think that any evidence that he did anything punishable by the laws of my country can be collected. Chatting with someone's child is not a crime here, unless you send them explicit pictures. Jenny says they were just casually hanging around like friends do. Nothing intimacy or even romantic. But I'm not sure I believe her as she kept lying to me about their stopped communication. My warm connection with my daughter is gone. I cannot trust her anymore when she says she's going to meet her school friends. So I have banned all her activities besides those where my wife or I are involved so we can keep an eye on her. So at this point, I don't know how I can keep this man away from my daughter, as it's clear that she's seeking to meet him disregarding my ban and our talks about it being dangerous. I have arranged a meeting of Jenny with a psychologist, but I'm not sure it's going to work. I feel that something is broken between me and my daughter now, and I don't know how to repair that. Any advice is appreciated. P.S. I foresee a question if I am sure that I am the father of Jenny, and not that guy is. Jenny is a carbon copy of me. And not only do our faces look alike, but we even have the same allergies. Also, after confessing about cheating, my ex assured me she had never cheated before, and I'm the only one who could be Jenny's father. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I understand your concerns, they are founded. So I have banned all her activities aside from those where I or my wife are involved, so we can keep an eye on her. This hardly turned out well. My warm connection with my daughter is gone. This is the authentic problem, you see? Without the support network that a kid should have at home, they will look for it somewhere else. It's really then that someone will step into the position of, I am the only one who really understands you. Advice: go and recover your relationship with your daughter. She needs to count on someone, and that would be better if it is you. Comment 2. I hate to say this, but you need to have a very frank conversation with your daughter about the things adult men do to young women. This man may just be a genuine friend, but he may also be dangerous. The fact that he has encouraged your daughter to continue to meet with him in secret suggests that he has nefarious intent. Adults who care for children do not meet them in secret. They do not encourage children to lie or keep things from their parents. Predators do that. She will be angry, and it is your responsibility to protect her. Your daughter's likely in serious danger. Now for the update. Thank you for sticking around for this update. Things have been rough since I last wrote. The situation with Jenny has spiraled into something I never expected. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, the past reared its ugly head again. It turns out that the man who's been contacting Jenny, let's call him Mark, had a deeper connection to her mother than I knew. My mom let slip that Mark and Jenny's mother had a serious relationship before she met me. This was a shock, to say the least, and it made me question everything. In the midst of all this, Jenny's behavior started to change. She became more secretive, and her grades dropped. My wife Helen and I were at our wits' end. We tried to talk to her, but she just shut down. It was like she was a completely different person. Then, one evening, Helen found a letter from Mark to Jenny hidden in her room. It was full of affectionate words and promises to always be there for her. This was the last straw. I confronted Jenny, and after a heated argument, she finally broke down and admitted that she saw Mark as a sort of father figure. She felt he was the only link to her mother. I was torn between anger and heartbreak. I realized that despite my efforts, Jenny had been carrying this burden of connecting with her past, and I hadn't seen it. I had to do something, so I took a bold step. I reached out to Mark myself. I wanted to understand his motives and make it clear that his presence was not welcome. We met at a coffee shop, a neutral place. The conversation was tense, but I learned that Mark genuinely cared for Jenny in his own misguided way. He agreed to stop contacting her, but only if Jenny herself told him to. It was a small victory, but it felt hollow. Back home, I sat down with Jenny and explained everything. I told her about my meeting with Mark and how we needed to move forward as a family. It was a tough conversation, full of tears and apologies. The next day, Jenny agreed to meet Mark one last time to end things. Helen and I were anxious, but we trusted her to handle it. They met at the park, and from a distance we watched as Jenny spoke to Mark. It was a long talk, and we couldn't hear what was said, but By the end, they hugged, and Mark walked away. Jenny came back to us, her face a mix of relief and sadness. Since then, things have slowly started to improve. Jenny's been more open with us, and her grades are picking up. We're rebuilding our trust day by day. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Thank you for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day,